What happens when a duchess becomes the internet's favorite punching bag? Not a controversial influencer, not a disgraced politician, but Meghan Markle, the same woman who once walked hand in hand with Prince Harry down the steps of Windsor Castle, her Givenchy gown trailing behind her like a vision from a modern-day fairy tale. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And now? She's been named the most disliked celebrity of 2025. Let that sink in. Not just unpopular, not controversial, the most disliked. In the entire celebrity ecosystem, above fallen reality stars, failed billionaires, convicted fraudsters, one name stood out. One name climbed to the top of the pyramid of disdain, and it wasn't Logan Paul. It wasn't Elon Musk. It was Meghan Markle. And when she found out, she snapped. Not publicly, at first. Not with a tweet or a soundbite. But behind the scenes, there were slammed doors, burned bridges, furious phone calls to agents, producers, and, allegedly, a tearful, rage-filled voicemail left for a royal aide who hadn't spoken to her in over 3 years. Because this wasn't just another tabloid jab. It was a seismic shift, a signal that something had snapped, not just in Meghan's public image, but in the cultural conversation about who we elevate and who we discard. This story isn't about gossip. It's about how a woman once embraced as a symbol of modern royalty, racial progress, and Hollywood glamour ended up being viewed by millions as an emblem of narcissism, manipulation, and hypocrisy. But was it all fair? Or is there a darker truth hiding beneath the headlines? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear, the voicemails, the fallout, the betrayal by her inner circle, and the bizarre turn of events that followed, hasn't been laid out like this before. Let's start with the moment the list went live. It was a Thursday morning when the annual Public Pulse Celebrity Sentiment Index dropped, an analytics firm known for tracking audience engagement, media tone, social media approval, and polling data across 10 countries. At first glance, the top 10 seemed like any typical year. Names like Jake Paul, Amber Heard, and even tech mogul Xander Cross peppered the list. And then, at number 1, bolded in red. 1. Meghan Markle. Accompanied by a damning approval score. Disapproval rating, 89%. Favorability, 6%. Neutral, 5%. Social media platforms exploded. YouTube reactions were instantaneous. TikTokers made parody skits within minutes. Twitter, or X, as it's now called, trended with hashtags like #StillAQueen, #MeghanMeltdown, #QueenOfWhat, #Duchess of Disaster. But the data wasn't fake. It wasn't speculative. It was sourced from 20 million data points, analyzed by algorithms, and verified with public polling. And when Meghan saw it, according to an insider, she went completely silent. For 10 full minutes. Not a word. Not a blink. And then came the fury. Here's the twist that most people didn't catch. Meghan had been preparing for a major rebrand in 2025. The name of the initiative? Still a Queen. Yes, that was the actual name. Trademarked, focus grouped, logo designed. A sleek lifestyle relaunch. A global women's summit. A Netflix miniseries titled Queen Energy. All meant to cement her as a global figure beyond royalty, someone not needing the title to carry the crown. But now, the timing couldn't have been worse. The very week she planned to unveil her Still a Queen merchandise line, she was being roasted online as a woman who couldn't let go of a title the world no longer respected. That's not irony. That's cinematic sabotage. And the fallout? It only gets darker from here. Let's zoom out. How did we get to this moment? How did Meghan Markle, an actress turned duchess, humanitarian, podcast host, feminist icon, and mother of 2, become the face of cultural contempt? Some say it started with that Oprah interview. Others point to Archetypes, her Spotify podcast. Some believe it was the Netflix documentary. Others, her rumored diva behavior on set in LA. And for many, it was the subtle moments. The contradictions. The way she spoke of privacy, then signed multi-million-dollar media deals. The way she criticized the monarchy, but continued to use the titles. The way she built an empire around being misunderstood while alienating those closest to her. And then there's the gender angle, the race angle, the Hollywood angle. Is she being held to an impossible standard, one that a white duchess wouldn't be judged against? Or is she simply reaping the consequences of a years-long brand strategy built on grievance and contradiction? That's the question millions are now asking. But what's certain is this: 2025 marked a breaking point, not just for Meghan's public image, but for her personal life, her marriage, her relationship with Hollywood, and, most painfully, her relationship with herself. Because in the days after that list dropped, Meghan didn't just vanish. She went to war. You see, there's one thing Meghan Markle knows how to do better than anyone: control the narrative. Or at least, she used to. This time, she tried everything. Late-night calls to her agent, demands to Spotify execs, urgent reshoots for an upcoming Amazon special, a forced leak of a staged paparazzi photo of her leaving a charity event with tears in her eyes, which backfired when people spotted the camera crew. She forgot to hide behind the hedge. She called in favors. She summoned old allies. But one by one, they began to ghost her. Even the most loyal corners of her inner circle started to fold. And that's when Meghan made her biggest mistake yet. She picked up the phone and called someone from her past. Someone she had burned. Someone who still had receipts. And someone who didn't stay quiet. The result? A leak. A voicemail. One that would spiral into a media firestorm and spark the next chapter in this disaster. One that might change how the public sees Meghan forever. Because you're about to hear the exact words Meghan allegedly said when she found out she was now the world's most disliked celebrity. And once you hear them, you can't unhear them. But first, let's rewind the clock 48 hours to the moment that list went live, and the first person to call Meghan wasn't who you'd expect. Who was the first person to call Meghan Markle after the list dropped? Not Harry, not her mother, Doria, not her agent or her publicist. It was a woman she hadn't spoken to in 8 months. A woman whose name hasn't been revealed publicly yet, but insiders call her the Mirror. Because she was one of the few people in Meghan's orbit who told her the truth. Unfiltered, brutal, honest. And when Meghan picked up the phone, this mystery voice didn't offer sympathy. She whispered just 4 words. "It's out. You're number 1. Meghan didn't understand at first. Number 1 on what? She reportedly asked. And then, the answer came. Public Pulse Index, the most disliked celebrity of 2025. A data-driven report seen by advertisers, producers, casting directors, and Hollywood power players. A list that quietly decides who gets endorsement deals and who gets iced out. And Meghan wasn't just on the list. She topped it. Not because of a scandal, not because of a crime, but because public sentiment, real, measurable public sentiment, had turned. Irreversibly. But what is this list? And why did it hit so hard? Let's break it down. The Public Pulse Celebrity Index isn't a tabloid trick. It's an annual analytics report issued by Van Ton and Klein, a private PR metrics firm used by major studios, brand execs, and social media platforms to track public sentiment. Their list doesn't just poll fans. It scours hashtags, comment threads, sentiment analysis from AI tools, influencer feedback, engagement to approval ratios, podcast mentions, and even dark web trend reports. The goal? Find out which celebrities are rising and which ones are radioactive. In 2023 and 2024, the list tracked traditional offenders, disgraced actors, bankrupt moguls, crypto scammers. But 2025? It was different, because Meghan's name didn't show up gradually. It jumped. According to insiders who saw the early data, she went from number 12 in 2024 to number 1 in under 6 months. No criminal conviction, no cheating scandal, just noise, resentment, fatigue, and fire. But why? What exactly pushed Meghan over the edge? There's no single moment. That's what makes this story so layered, so uncomfortable. It wasn't one scandal. It was 1,000 cuts, a slow erosion of goodwill, a soft betrayal of trust, a widening contradiction between image and reality. Think back. Meghan had once been the girl who broke the palace mold, a biracial American actress who married into the world's most archaic monarchy and, for a moment, made it feel modern, empowered, progressive, fresh. People wanted her to win, and for a while, she did. The royal wedding, the Oprah interview, the first Spotify deal, the Netflix documentary, the Archetypes podcast, all framed as part of a bigger message, reclaiming voice, identity, control. But slowly, something changed. People started to notice the pattern. and pattern recognition, is deadly for public image. Here's what the data showed. Approval among self-identified feminists dropped 43% between May 2024 and January 2025. Disengagement from Gen Z audiences, a 62% drop in TikTok shares involving Meghan clips, but a 310% spike in mocking edits. Celebrity engagement decline. 8 out of 10 previously close celebrity allies either stopped tagging her, unfollowed, or refused to comment. Public comment sentiment. 71% of top-liked comments under Meghan-related posts were negative or sarcastic. And then there were the headlines. Let's look at just 3 from the months leading up to the list. Meghan Markle's empathy empire faces allegations of elitism. Queen without a crown. Critics question Meghan's new lifestyle brand. From archetypes to archetypal villain, these weren't tabloid covers. They were think pieces, Substack essays, podcasts from influencers who once supported her. People were turning. And Meghan? She didn't see it coming. When the list was finalized, the firm debated how to break the news. They knew it would leak. They knew it would cause damage. And they suspected, correctly, that Meghan's team would go into full damage control. But what they didn't know was how personal the backlash had become. It wasn't just that the public disliked her. It's why they disliked her. In a supplemental section of the report, leaked later, respondents cited 4 recurring themes. Hypocrisy. She says she wants privacy, but does Netflix shows and paparazzi ops. Inauthenticity. Everything feels rehearsed, like she's always acting. Victimhood fatigue. There's always someone else to blame. Title confusion. She left the royal family, but still uses her Duchess title for branding. But here's where it gets interesting. Even among people who admitted they once admired Meghan, 64% now reported feeling embarrassed to have supported her. That's not disapproval. That's disillusionment. A sense of personal betrayal. That's the kind of data no amount of PR can spin. And Meghan? She was blindsided. One former staffer described it like this. She thought she was building an empire of empathy. She didn't realize people felt manipulated. The source added that Meghan kept asking the same question over and over. Why now? But it wasn't about now. It was about everything. The slow unraveling. The missteps. The tone-deaf launches. The podcast clips that didn't land. The merch that screamed royalty while she claimed to reject the monarchy. And most of all, the sense that Meghan wasn't speaking to people anymore. She was speaking at them. Let's talk numbers. By the time the Public Pulse report dropped, her podcast renewal had stalled. Netflix had quietly shelved her new project. A luxury skincare collab she teased on Instagram had been dropped 2 days earlier. And then, boom, the list went public. Not officially, of course, but a leaked PDF, real or not, spread like wildfire across Reddit, Discord, and YouTube. Within hours, screenshots of Meghan's name at the top circulated on X. Memes exploded. Reaction videos surged. Comedians pounced. Influencers parroted. And Meghan? She disappeared. No tweets. No posts. No appearances. Just a vacuum. Until that phone call. The one that ended with a voicemail. A voicemail that was never meant to be heard. And yet, within days, the world would hear it. Because the real story here wasn't the list. It was Meghan's response to it. And how that response, a single, furious moment caught on tape, might be what doomed her forever. To be continued. So what exactly was that voicemail? We'll get there. But first, let's zoom in on the 48 hours following the leak. Multiple sources confirm Meghan went dark. Not just online, but personally. She stopped replying to texts. She skipped a scheduled Zoom call with her new branding consultants. And according to someone inside the Montecito property, the mood was icy. Harry reportedly tried to keep things calm, walking on eggshells, unsure whether to offer comfort or distance. But Meghan was stewing, and she wasn't staying silent for long. Here's where things took a sharp turn. That same unnamed former friend, the one who first called to break the news, didn't stop at that call. She saved Meghan's reaction. She recorded the voicemail Meghan left after hanging up. Why? We don't know for sure. Maybe revenge. Maybe spite. Maybe just one too many burned bridges. But what we do know is this. Within 72 hours of the list dropping, an anonymous email containing that audio file was sent to 3 major entertainment blogs. And one of them hit publish. The audio? Short. Furious. Scathing. And it ended with a line that would go viral for all the wrong reasons. A line that became the defining quote of Meghan's downfall. But what did she say? What exactly was in that voicemail? We'll reveal that next. Because when the world heard it, everything changed. Why did the women who once cheered for Meghan turn against her first? It wasn't the tabloids. It wasn't the palace. It wasn't even the public at large. It was her core audience. The very women who had defended her online. The ones who once said, she's just like us. The feminists, the mothers, the professionals, the dreamers, the girls who had looked at Meghan and thought, maybe I can be royal too. They didn't just stop supporting her. They turned. And no one, not Meghan, not her team, not even her critics, expected it to happen so fast and so quietly. Because it didn't begin with rage. It began with indifference. And then came the disgust. Let's rewind to 2018. The wedding. The glow. The gospel choir echoing through Windsor. A black duchess in the royal family. A feminist. A humanitarian. The speeches. The smiles. The power. Women everywhere felt it. This wasn't just a wedding, it was history. And when Meghan stepped onto the global stage, she became a symbol of progress, of resistance, of elegance with backbone. She spoke about female empowerment. She talked about breaking down barriers. She told girls they could dream bigger, and that she was living proof. And for a time, it worked. The press tried to smear her, but women rallied. Online defenders organized hashtags. They wrote articles, shot reaction videos, started podcasts. She wasn't just a duchess. She was a movement. But that movement didn't last. So what happened? How do you go from feminist icon to female enemy number one? Let's start with the first cracks. They didn't come from the palace. They came from former fans, bloggers, influencers, activists, educators, women who had followed her journey and started to ask uncomfortable questions. Questions like, why is she monetizing the same titles she claimed destroyed her? Why is her brand about amplifying female voices? But her staffers keep quitting. Why does she talk about equality, but surround herself with billionaires? These weren't trolls. They weren't bots. They were thoughtful, once loyal voices saying, something doesn't add up. And once that unease set in, it spread. Like wildfire. Let's look at the numbers. In early 2025, a polling firm conducted a gender-specific sentiment analysis around Meghan. The results were jaw-dropping. Among women aged 25 to 45, her target demographic, favorability dropped from 62% in 2022 to just 13% in Q1 of 2025. Worse, when asked to describe Meghan in a single word, the top responses were contrived, fake, performer, entitled, exhausting. Why did this audience feel so alienated? Because they saw a woman who had sold them a story of empowerment, but was now acting like the very elite she claimed to rebel against. And for many, that felt like betrayal. Take the Still a Queen campaign. The name alone? Loaded. What was meant to be a cheeky assertion of confidence, a tongue-in-cheek nod to her former title, came off as tone-deaf. The merch drop? Worse. Tote bags that said "bow down" in Gothic font. Candle collections named after palace scandals. An empowerment robe, price tag, $395, made from ethically sourced Italian silk and packaged in royal purple boxes. Social media imploded. Comments flooded in. Is this feminism or fantasy cosplay? Why are you profiting off titles you rejected? You told us to dismantle the monarchy. Now you're selling it back to us. The disconnect was brutal. And it wasn't men pointing it out. It was women. Loudly, boldly, publicly. And Meghan, as usual, didn't respond. But silence, in this case, wasn't strategic. It was damning. Let's talk influencers. Back in 2021, Meghan had a strong digital ally army. Bookstagrammers, wellness bloggers, political TikTokers. They reposted her quotes. They cited her speeches. They defended her against attacks. But by 2025, they were posting takedowns. One viral TikTok creator, with over 3 million followers, posted a 3-minute clip titled, "I believed in Meghan Markle. Now I don't." It got 12.4 million views in a week. Her key argument? She sold us feminism. But what she delivered was luxury elitism wrapped in victimhood. Another beauty influencer publicly rejected a brand collab Meghan was linked to. Her reason? I don't want to be associated with hypocrisy dressed up as girl power. And then there was the now infamous podcast episode titled When Queens Lie. A roundtable of female commentators dissecting Meghan's contradictions, from archetypes to her trademark filings to the unconfirmed rumor she tried to patent the phrase royal energy. The episode charted at number 2 on Spotify globally. It didn't just attack Meghan. It mocked her. And for someone who had once been the face of grace, that shift was catastrophic. But here's the twist. Some of Meghan's most vocal female critics were once her personal allies. One former friend, a well-known LA activist, posted a now-deleted Instagram story. I believed her when she said she wanted to uplift women. But in private, she was the meanest girl in the room. Another former colleague hinted at verbal abuse, performance tantrums, and fake compassion. One staffer simply wrote, "Don't let the yoga and quotes fool you." The worst part? Meghan didn't address any of it. No interviews, no op-eds, no statement of accountability. Just more content, more campaigns, more queen energy. And that only deepened the resentment. Because nothing feels worse than being sold a lie and then watching the liar double down. Let's pause here. Let's talk emotionally. How does it feel to watch a woman you once rooted for turn into someone you barely recognize? It feels personal. It feels like you were tricked. And that's what made the female backlash so potent. It wasn't just dislike. It was emotional whiplash. The sense that you invested in someone, believed in her, fought for her, and she used that to build a brand, only to abandon the values that built it. Women didn't turn on Meghan because she failed. They turned because she stopped being authentic. Or maybe she never was. And that realization hit hard. Hard enough to put her at the top of the most disliked list. Hard enough to leave even her staunchest defenders saying, "I'm done." But Meghan didn't go down without a fight. Because what she did next wasn't an apology. It was a counterattack. And it started with a voicemail. The voicemail. The one everyone would be talking about in 48 hours. The one where Meghan finally let the world hear what she really thought of her critics, her supporters, and especially the women. To be continued. So what was in the voicemail? It wasn't meant for public ears. And yet, it found them anyway. The leaked audio, reportedly recorded late at night, was short, under 45 seconds, but it cut like a scalpel through Meghan's carefully crafted brand. And it began with this. "I gave them a fairy tale, and they spit it back in my face." Her voice was tight, controlled, but dripping with contempt. Then she added, "Women are the worst. Jealous, petty, fake. They pretend to want someone to break the mold, but when you do, they burn you for it." It was the last line that went viral. They don't want a queen. They want a puppet in a tiara. That quote was on every reaction channel, every late-night monologue, every Twitter thread. And for millions of women who had once supported her, it was the final straw. The betrayal wasn't just in the sentiment. It was in the arrogance, the blame, the complete refusal to acknowledge her own role in the backlash. She didn't say, "I hear you." She didn't say, "I messed up." She said, "You're jealous." It was the most cliché response possible, and it cemented what so many had started to feel. That Meghan Markle wasn't just misunderstood. She was manipulating the very audience that made her famous. The irony? She called herself a queen. But with one leaked message, she dethroned herself. And as the backlash intensified, Meghan's isolation grew. Because what came next wasn't just public criticism. It was private abandonment by the people she needed most. And one of them was Harry. What do you do when your entire image burns down, and you're the one who lit the match? If you're Meghan Markle, you don't call 911. You don't stop, drop, and roll. You build a bigger fire. At least, that's what insiders say happened behind the doors of the Montecito estate during the most chaotic 72 hours of Meghan's public life. Because as the internet exploded with backlash, as the leaked voicemail circulated, as memes flooded TikTok, as former fans went from sad to savage, Meghan didn't retreat into silence. She called a meeting, a crisis control summit. And what followed was one of the most aggressive, chaotic, and ultimately self-destructive PR strategies in modern celebrity history. They even had a name for it, Project Reset. But by the time the smoke cleared, the only thing reset was her reputation. Back to zero. Let's go inside that Montecito meeting. According to a senior publicist who has since been fired, the emergency PR call was scheduled for 9 0 a.m. sharp the morning after the voicemail leak hit the front page of the Daily View, a digital publication that broke the audio worldwide. Meghan was reportedly already seated in her kitchen's glass conference nook, wearing a cashmere tracksuit and sipping a turmeric latte. She was calm. Too calm, one person noted. The kind of calm that scares people. Harry was present, but mostly silent. His eyes locked on the floor, his fingers tapping the edge of his phone like he wanted to vanish into it. The agenda? Control the narrative. Reclaim the message. Silence the noise. But there was one problem. The message was already gone. And the noise? It was a roar. Here's what was proposed. A heartfelt Instagram video, featuring Meghan in soft lighting, no makeup, speaking directly to camera about vulnerability, womanhood, and unfair attacks. A pivot to charity messaging, tying the backlash to women's mental health, suggesting a broader cultural issue. A scheduled podcast episode, recorded within 24 hours, called Still a Queen, where Meghan would reframe the entire conversation. Merch discounts and limited-time empowerment box giveaways to reward loyal fans. A possible lawsuit threat against the outlets that published the voicemail. On paper, it sounded like a plan. In reality, it was a PR inferno. Because what Meghan didn't realize was that her brand wasn't suffering from lack of control, it was suffering from lack of authenticity. Every move she made in those first 48 hours came off not as genuine, but as strategy. Calculated, curated, cold, and the internet could smell it. Let's talk about the Instagram video. It dropped 36 hours after the leak. The caption read, "For every woman who's ever been silenced, misunderstood, or mocked for being herself, this is for you." The video? A tight close-up of Meghan's face. She spoke softly. Her voice broke at certain points. She said she never claimed to be perfect, that she knows how this feels, and that she was committed to rising above noise and hate. The problem? The background wasn't her kitchen. It was a professionally lit backdrop used for past Netflix interviews. Eagle-eyed viewers noticed the light bounce in her eyes, clear signs of a three-point studio setup. It wasn't raw. It wasn't real. It was branded vulnerability. And within minutes, the comments lit up. "You cried on cue. This is just another performance. We're done with the tears. Show some accountability. You still haven't addressed what you said about women." Worse, several women's rights groups, ones who had previously supported Meghan, publicly distanced themselves from the post. One even tweeted, "Empowerment isn't blaming women for not liking your brand. It's listening, growing, and owning your mistakes." Then came the podcast, Still a Queen. The title alone was a risk. Some thought it was bold. Most thought it was delusional. But Meghan pushed forward. She recorded it in one sitting, allegedly ignoring last-minute advice from her comms team to postpone. In the 42-minute episode, she addressed the voicemail without ever apologizing for its content. Instead, she framed it as a private moment of exasperation, taken out of context, weaponized against a woman who dared to speak her truth. She compared her situation to historical female figures who had been burned for being outspoken, a line many interpreted as comparing herself to Joan of Arc. But the backlash was immediate. Clips from the podcast went viral, but not for the reasons she hoped. Soundbites like, "They want a puppet in a tiara. Some people can't handle an unfiltered woman with power. Hurt people, and the internet is hurting." These weren't seen as empowering. They were seen as deflecting. There was no reflection, no self-awareness, no growth, just more spin. And spin, especially in the digital age, doesn't just fail. It boomerangs. Even her closest allies began to retreat. One well-known TV host who had championed Meghan during the Oprah era declined to repost the podcast. An anonymous A-list actress, who once called Meghan a real-life heroine, reportedly ghosted her. One fashion house, scheduled to co-launch the new Still a Queen robe line, pulled out hours before press photos were set to go live. Behind closed doors, things were even messier. Sources say Meghan began blaming her own team, accusing them of not preparing her for this level of betrayal and failing to shield her from sabotage. One staffer quit on the spot. Another forwarded internal texts to the press, and those texts would soon make the headlines. But before that bomb dropped, Meghan made one last move. A move so tone-deaf, so miscalculated, It sent her spiraling into a new wave of mockery and memification. She released a candle. Yes, a candle. Limited edition. $95. Named Burn the Narrative. It came in gold foil packaging, each one shipped with a tiny crown-shaped wick holder. The scent was labeled Notes of Resilience, Rose, and Revolution. Instagram laughed. Twitter howled. TikTok created a viral trend mocking it. Hashtag Burn the Narrative Challenge. Users pretending to cleanse their homes by throwing the candle in the bin. But the cruelest burn? The top comment under the product announcement was just one word. Gaslight. By the end of the week, Meghan's PR strategy wasn't just imploding. It was fueling the backlash. Every attempt to regain control only made her look more out of touch. And the public wasn't buying it. They weren't angry anymore. They were bored. And boredom, for a celebrity, is fatal. But just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, something else leaked. A screenshot of a private group chat between Meghan's team, where one message, reportedly written by her head of strategy, referred to her fanbase as easy to activate, hard to retain. We just need a new sob story. The message hit the internet like a lightning bolt. And the betrayal? This time it wasn't Meghan's critics talking. It was her supporters, the few still left. Because that one sentence proved their worst fear. That they weren't part of a movement. They were part of a strategy. And no one likes being played. To be continued. The fallout from that leaked group chat message was immediate. Fan pages deactivated. Moderators of Meghan's most active subreddit posted a joint resignation letter. A once loyal TikTok creator with over 800,000 followers posted a tearful video saying, "I really thought she cared, but we were just metrics on a dashboard to her." The betrayal wasn't about the media this time. It was about trust between Meghan and the women who once fought for her online, who defended her against racism, sexism, classism, who saw themselves in her and now felt used. And Meghan? She didn't respond. Not publicly. Not to the candle backlash. Not to the podcast criticism. Not to the chat leak. She vanished again. Radio silence. And for a woman whose brand had been built on voice, the silence spoke volumes. Because it didn't feel like dignity. It felt like retreat. A white flag waving from behind curated Instagram posts and empty affirmations. But the worst part? This was only week 1. Week 2 was when Harry would speak, and what he said would shatter what was left of their united front. Because while Meghan was busy lighting PR fires, Harry had been watching quietly. And now, he had something to say. What happens when a public figure forgets the world is always listening? In the age of digital breadcrumbs, nothing truly disappears. Not the drafts you delete, not the texts you regret, and definitely not the voicemails you thought were private. For Meghan Markle, it was just another heated moment. A burst of frustration, a late-night vent, a message left on someone's phone, a voice she assumed was safe. But within hours, that voicemail was everywhere. It was on TikTok. It was dissected on YouTube. It was looped on Instagram Reels. And it was played, in full, on primetime American television. For many, it confirmed what they suspected. For others, it cracked the last illusion of grace. And for Meghan, it was a digital scar that wouldn't fade. Because in 42 seconds, she didn't just break character. She dropped the mask entirely. Let's rewind. The voicemail wasn't left in the chaos after the list dropped. It was left before the PR summit, before the Instagram video, right after that phone call with the former friend, the one who told her, point blank, "You're number one." One source, who heard the message directly, described Meghan's tone as low, sharp, and surgical. Not yelling, not crying, just cutting. Here's a transcript of the most infamous portion, as reported by multiple outlets. "I gave them everything. The truth, the pain, the story. I bled for that brand. And now, they're mocking me? Over what? A list made by bots. These people are disgusting." She pauses, then adds, "I've been too soft. That's the real mistake. I tried to be likable. I tried to play their little empathy game. But if they want a villain, fine. I'll be the villain." That line, "I'll be the villain," it became a meme, a t-shirt, a parody dance, a hashtag that trended for 4 days straight. Hashtag Villainera Meghan. Within minutes, pop culture had seized it. Clips of Disney villains lip-syncing to her audio. Edits of her walking through royal corridors with thunder crashing behind her. A mashup video. Meghan's voiceover scenes from Game of Thrones, set to dramatic orchestral music, titled Rise of the Queen Without a Throne. But beyond the memes was something more dangerous: confirmation bias. People who already distrusted her suddenly felt vindicated. They shared the audio like it was a smoking gun. And the fallout? It wasn't just digital. It was personal. Let's talk about the person who received the voicemail. Their identity hasn't been officially confirmed. But every major entertainment outlet, from BuzzTime to Vanity Spy, claims it was a former stylist, someone close to Meghan during the early Netflix press tour. They had a falling out sometime in late 2024, sources say, over a contract dispute. The stylist had quietly stepped back from Meghan's projects. No drama, no headlines, just distance. And then, boom, the voicemail. Why would they leak it? Some say revenge, others say money. But according to a leaked DM, they told a friend, "I just wanted people to know what she really thinks of them." That motive, emotional, not financial, is what made the leak sting more. It wasn't sold to the press. It was gifted to the public. A digital dagger. And it cut deep. The timing of the leak was devastating. Meghan's Still a Queen podcast had just dropped. The Instagram video was still in people's feeds. Some supporters were even beginning to come to her defense again. But the voicemail wiped it all clean. Any goodwill she had managed to claw back vanished. Brand endorsements that were in renegotiation? Pulled. An upcoming magazine feature? Killed. One luxury retailer canceled their scheduled press box drop and sent out a very specific email. "We no longer align with messaging that undermines women." The irony? Meghan's entire platform had been built on the idea of supporting women, uplifting them, defending them. But in that voicemail, she called them disgusting. She blamed them for turning on her. She made herself the victim, again. And this time, people weren't buying it. Especially not women. Especially not the ones who once believed in her. But the biggest crack in the foundation wasn't Meghan's voice. It was Harry's silence. Because in the past, he had always been there. In interviews, in docuseries, in speeches. He was the doting husband, the protector, the ally. But after the voicemail dropped, he said nothing. And then, he unfollowed her Still a Queen campaign page on Instagram. Fans noticed instantly. Speculation exploded. And 3 days later, he issued a cryptic, 43-word statement to the press. "My wife is a brilliant, complex woman. She has faced challenges most cannot understand. But we all make mistakes, and growth begins with reflection, not reaction. I hope we can all move forward with honesty and kindness." It wasn't exactly a defense. It wasn't exactly support. It was the distancing. A subtle pivot. And for Meghan, it was a warning shot. Because if Harry was no longer fully in her corner, who was? The headlines shifted overnight. Harry speaks, and it's not what Meghan wanted. From power couple to PR crisis. Are the Sussexes splintering? The villain era wasn't a PR strategy. It was a confession. Entertainment podcasts did full breakdowns of the voicemail. Body language experts were brought in. Voice analysts dissected her tone. Former staffers gave anonymous interviews with phrases like, "We always knew this side of her existed." But here's the thing. Most people weren't shocked. They were resigned. The voicemail didn't change the narrative. It confirmed it. And that, in many ways, is worse. Because when a public figure loses the benefit of the doubt, they lose everything. Meghan's image wasn't just damaged. It was redefined. Not by a scandal, not by a palace, but by her own voice. And yet, she didn't back down. She didn't apologize. She didn't walk anything back. She didn't even address the villain line. Instead, she leaned in. She posted a quote to her stories, white text on a black background. "If they want to see you burn, set yourself on fire and light the damn sky." People thought it was a metaphor. But what came next wasn't symbolic at all. It was a calculated move. A shocking partnership. A new public appearance that no one expected, not even her fans. And it would push the backlash to an entirely new level. Because Meghan wasn't done. She was just getting started. 3 days after the voicemail leak, Meghan Markle stepped out. Not into a garden. Not onto a quiet podcast set. But onto the red carpet. A bold, defiant re-entry. The event? The International Women's Branding Summit in Beverly Hills. The outfit? A fitted crimson cape dress. Structured shoulders. No jewelry. No smile. The message was clear. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't softening. She was owning the villain narrative and rewriting it on her terms. But the real shock? She wasn't alone. Flanked at her side, arm-linked, cameras flashing, was none other than Kris Jenner. Yes, that Kris Jenner. The queen of spin. The architect of celebrity. The master of monetized scandal. And just like that, the internet exploded again. Meghan plus Kris? PR Avengers? From royal to reality? She's not leaning in. She's free-falling. Rumors spread like wildfire. A reality series in development. A media training package for female CEOs. A possible Hulu docuseries called Uncancelled. But behind the glossy photos and forced smiles, one thing was clear. Meghan was no longer trying to reclaim her old image. She was forging a new one, forged in fire, controversy, and unapologetic defiance. And that left people asking, if Meghan was stepping into her villain era, what was she planning to do next? The answer would come from the one person whose silence had grown louder by the day, Harry. And when he finally broke that silence, fully, publicly, what he revealed would shock the world, and possibly break what was left of their empire. What does a prince do when the fairy tale he helped write begins to unravel, one headline at a time? For Prince Harry, silence was never the plan. He had been the loud one, the rebel, the outspoken, the defector from the firm. He had fought for Meghan. Publicly, brutally, emotionally, even when it cost him everything. But in 2025, as Meghan Markle became the most disliked celebrity on the planet and the world dissected her every move, Harry did something that shook the public more than anything he could have said. He said nothing. No tweets. No podcast cameos. No Netflix interviews. No op-eds in The Atlantic about mental health or modern masculinity. Just silence. And when he finally broke it, weeks after the voicemail leak, he didn't defend Meghan. He didn't condemn her either. What he did was far more complicated, and, to many, far more telling. Because it was the first time Prince Harry allowed the world to see what insiders had whispered about for months. That behind the Montecito gates, things were not okay. Let's go back. It started with a whisper, a pattern, a small series of absences. Harry missing from key meetings. Harry postponing an appearance at the Invictus Games regional events. Harry declining to appear in the second teaser video for Meghan's Still a Queen campaign. The internet noticed. Quickly, fans asked, where is Harry? Was he traveling? Was he sick? Was he distancing? Then came the Easter photo, or lack of one. For the first time since leaving royal duties, Harry and Meghan did not release a holiday image of their family. No staged candid of Archie in the grass. No black and white snap of Lilibet playing with her mother's bracelet. Instead, silence. Meghan posted an empowerment quote. Harry? Nothing. And in royal watching circles, no holiday photo is not just an omission. It's a statement. Then, things got weirder. Someone noticed that Harry's private Instagram, the one connected to his charitable foundation, had unfollowed several of Meghan's lifestyle accounts. A small detail, one most people would dismiss. But this time, it was a spark on dry kindling. Within hours, #WhereIsHarry was trending. Speculation turned to frenzy. Body language experts dissected old footage. Clips of Harry appearing uncomfortable during Meghan's Queen Energy promo tour went viral. Old quotes resurfaced. He looks like he's auditioning for Escape. Blink twice if you need help. It was satire, but also a cry. Because no one had seen Harry this quiet in years. And the louder Meghan got, the more Harry disappeared. Until finally, the dam cracked. The moment came in the form of a solo interview. No red carpet. No film crew. Just a quietly uploaded conversation on the Invictus Games YouTube channel. The title? On Resilience, Reflection, and Reconnection. A conversation with Prince Harry. It was meant to be about veterans. About healing. But 11 minutes in, the interviewer gently pivoted. There's been a lot of noise around your family lately. Public criticism. Misunderstandings. How do you navigate that emotionally? Harry paused. For too long. Then he said this. We all make choices. I made mine. I chose love. I chose honesty. And sometimes, honesty comes at a cost. The interviewer pressed. Do you feel misunderstood? Harry smiled. Not the soft kind, but the tense kind. Sometimes. But mostly, I think people mistake pain for anger. And silence for complicity. He didn't name Meghan. He didn't have to. Then came the line that would make international headlines. No one is the hero in every chapter, not even in your own story. It was subtle, elegant, devastating. A poetic way of saying, this isn't what I signed up for. And just like that, Harry had broken ranks. Not with a tabloid expose, not with a messy divorce announcement, but with something more dangerous to a brand like Meghan's. Ambiguity. Because ambiguity breeds speculation. And speculation kills loyalty. Within hours, hashtags flipped. Hashtag Team Harry. Hashtag he tried. Hashtag free the spare. Public opinion started to shift again. People began separating Meghan and Harry into Meghan and Harry. The image of the united front cracked. Podcasts declared, Harry just pulled the plug without pulling the plug. One royal analyst called it the soft launch of a royal split. And here's what's wild. That interview? It was pre-recorded, but Harry demanded it be released early, privately, without Meghan's approval. One production assistant told a reporter he was done waiting for the narrative to change. He wanted out, at least emotionally. The fallout inside their home? Unknown. But according to a Montecito neighbor, Harry was spotted staying in the guest house that week. Not the main residence. Not with Meghan. And then came the whisper of whispers. A rumor that Meghan had been advised by a branding consultant to quietly detach from the Sussex identity and lean into solo ventures under her first name only, Meghan. No titles. No Duchess. No Harry. Just Meghan. One-word brand. Like Beyoncé. Or Oprah. Or Madonna. And if that was true, was it Meghan pulling away from Harry? Or Harry pulling away first? No one knew. But public perception doesn't wait for facts. It forms based on signals. And the signals were screaming. Meghan was spinning. Harry was reflecting. And the gap between them, both literal and emotional, had never been more obvious. But even as people speculated about a split, a bigger twist was coming. Because Harry wasn't the only one stepping out solo. Meghan had one more appearance lined up. A keynote speech. A massive stage. A live broadcast. And what she said there, in front of thousands, would either salvage her legacy or set it on fire. The speech was scheduled for the Global Women's Leadership Forum in San Francisco. Meghan would be the closing keynote. The summit's theme? Reclaiming power in a fractured world. Fitting. Ironic. Loaded. The auditorium was packed. Thousands of attendees. Dozens of cameras. And one front row seat, left empty. Reserved for Prince Harry. He never showed. Organizers said nothing. The audience noticed everything. When Meghan finally walked on stage. Navy silk jumpsuit, sharp heels, not a single accessory. The applause was cautious. Polite. Not thunderous. She opened strong, as she always does. Every woman in this room has been called something she didn't deserve. Too loud. Too ambitious. Too emotional. Too much. The crowd nodded. She continued. I've been called all those things, and worse. Lately, even villain. A pause. But I've realized something. I'd rather be a woman who speaks too much than one who stays silent while the world decides her worth. The delivery was tight, rehearsed, defiant, but something was missing. Not just Harry. Warmth. The speech felt like armor, not truth. And while some clapped, others didn't. The final line? You don't have to be liked to lead. You just have to be willing to lose things, even love, to stand tall. That word hung in the air. Love. Some thought it was about the audience. Others weren't so sure. Because within hours, every outlet asked the same question. Was Meghan Markle confirming a split with Harry, live on stage? No answer came. But 2 days later, paparazzi caught Harry boarding a flight to London. Alone. What if the most devastating move is silence? While Meghan Markle was battling headlines, hashtags, and her own reflection, a very different storm was brewing, or rather, not brewing, in Kensington Palace. No drama, no statement, no reactive PR campaign, just precision. Kate Middleton, the Princess of Wales, didn't say a single word about Meghan's villain era. She didn't tweet a thing. She didn't sit down for an interview or leak insider quotes to her close friends in the press. Instead, she did something far more devastating. She smiled, and the cameras did the rest. It started with a photo, a single image, posted without comment, by the official at Kensington Royal account. Kate, standing on the balcony of a children's cancer hospital. No makeup. Hair swept back. A small child holding her hand. The caption? Hope, strength, grace. That was it. No hashtags, no press rollout. But the image exploded. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. The timing? Brutal. The post went live just hours after Meghan's Reclaiming Power keynote. The juxtaposition was immediate and jarring. On one screen, Meghan standing on a massive stage, framed by LED lights, delivering a rehearsed monologue about losing love and defying labels. On the other, Kate holding the hand of a child who'd just finished chemo. No script, no applause, just presence. And for the British public, and much of the global press, the contrast wasn't subtle. It was a power move, and it hit hard. Within hours, the headlines arrived. The Queen we chose. Kate's silent response to Meghan's speech. 2 duchesses, 2 strategies, 1 wins. While Meghan talked, Kate acted. But Kate wasn't trying to win the internet. She didn't need to. Because where Meghan was chasing narrative, Kate was anchoring it. And in a world drowning in noise, the anchor always wins. Let's rewind. Kate Middleton has never been a PR scrapper. She doesn't clap back. She doesn't go live. She doesn't tweet late at night in her pajamas. She plays the long game. Calculated. Slow. Symbolic. Her weapon? Timing. And she wielded it masterfully in the months following Meghan's collapse. First, it was that hospital visit. Then came the Commonwealth Garden Project, a quiet initiative to plant native species across UK schoolyards. Launched the same week Meghan's Still a Queen merch line was pulled from multiple retailers. Kate didn't reference Meghan, but the optics? They were surgical. While Meghan was trending for a leaked voicemail and a branded candle called Burn the Narrative, Kate was handing schoolchildren biodegradable seed kits tied with twine and handwritten notes. Every public move she made oozed composure. Every photo told a story. Soft lighting, natural fabrics, children, elders, clean lines, calm tones, no noise, no scandal, no content, just service. It was a masterclass in contrast, and it didn't go unnoticed. Behind the scenes, the palace wasn't idle either. Insiders say the Royal Communications Office had anticipated a second Meghan media wave, especially with the planned Queen Energy reboot and Netflix deal. Their plan? Don't react. Let her swing alone. Instead, they doubled down on Kate. She was scheduled for back-to-back appearances, refugee centers, maternity wards, veterans' homes, each paired with minimal press, no soundbites, and carefully selected photographers. It worked. Public sentiment swung decisively. One poll in early Q3 of 2025 showed 87% favorability for Kate, 9% favorability for Meghan, 4% undecided. That gap wasn't just wide. It was historic. Wider than Diana versus Camilla in 1996. Wider than Charles post-Tampongate. Wider than even Andrew post-Epstein. And it wasn't because Kate did anything new. It was because she didn't do anything wrong. But here's where it gets interesting. While Kate remained publicly silent, privately, she was watching. According to one royal aide, Kate was briefed weekly, sometimes daily, on Meghan's moves. Every podcast drop, every event, every merchandise release. She knew what was coming, and she planned around it. For instance, the palace moved Kate's Listening Mothers campaign announcement up by 2 weeks, dropping it the same day Meghan teased her Empress Mindset meditation app. Result? Kate trended for maternal mental health. Meghan trended for tone-deaf cash grab. One royal source reportedly said, "The princess doesn't engage in drama, but she'll happily let you fall on your own sword." And Meghan? She noticed. One of her aides leaked that she was furious about the Garden Post. Another insider claimed Meghan snapped during a brand call and shouted, "I'm not competing with her. She's competing with me." But that wasn't true. Kate wasn't competing. She was waiting. And when Meghan imploded, Kate didn't say a word. She just stood still. And that silence? It echoed louder than any headline Meghan could buy. The final nail came not from a statement, but from an invitation. In mid-July, the Royal Variety charity released the official guest list for its 2025 gala, one of the most high-profile events of the royal calendar. It featured King Charles, Queen Camilla, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. Noticeably absent, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Even though, in prior years, they'd been floated as potential surprise guests, especially as part of royal outreach initiatives. But not this time. The list was locked. And the seating plan? Even more telling. Kate would be seated between two global female leaders. One from Rwanda, the other from Canada, for a panel discussion on global education. It was billed as the future of feminine leadership in the 21st century. No tiaras, no speeches about victimhood, no candles, just action. And the symbolism? Devastating. Because while Meghan had positioned herself as a global female voice, it was Kate who was now being invited to lead on the world stage. No branding slogans. No Queen energy. Just respect. And Meghan? She posted a cryptic quote on her personal story that same night. Some people lead. Others perform. Only time reveals the difference. But time already had. And with every carefully timed appearance, Kate Middleton had done what no podcast, PR team, or Instagram caption could do. She reminded the world that grace doesn't need a microphone. And now that the public had chosen their queen, one without theatrics or taglines, Meghan's next move would have to be massive. Which is exactly why she reached for something explosive. Something, or rather, someone from her past. What happens when the person who knew you before the spotlight finally decides to speak? For years, Trevor Engelson had remained silent. While Meghan Markle rose from television actress to duchess to global brand, her ex-husband, a successful but discreet Hollywood producer, stayed in the shadows. No press tours, no podcasts, no tell-all memoirs, just silence. He'd become an enigma. A curiosity, the man Meghan left behind when she traded Hollywood for royalty. And for some time, that silence was golden. But in 2025, it turned into a loaded gun. And Trevor? He finally pulled the trigger. Not out of rage, not for revenge, but because, in his own words, he was tired of being the ghost in Meghan's story. Let's rewind to how he got here. Trevor Engelson and Meghan Markle met in the early 2000s, both hustling in Hollywood, navigating casting calls and film deals. He was the behind-the-scenes guy. She was the aspiring star. They dated for 7 years, married in 2011, and divorced in 2013. No tabloid scandals, no explosive headlines. But insiders always whispered that the breakup was sudden, cold, delivered via FedEx. If you believe the long-standing rumor that Meghan mailed her rings back instead of facing him. For years, Trevor refused to comment. Even when Meghan became a duchess. Even when the Oprah interview aired. Even when The Crown teased a Meghan-inspired arc. He stayed quiet. Until Meghan began to unravel publicly in 2025. And the calls started coming. From agents. From publishers. From streaming giants. And eventually, from himself. The first hint came in a tiny byline. Trevor Engelson signs multi-million-dollar book deal with Stratton Publishing. The press release described it as a memoir about power, privacy, and personal truth in the age of fame. The title? Unclaimed Baggage. Subtle. Savage. And when the teaser excerpt was released to media outlets, the internet lost its mind. In one passage, Trevor described a nameless woman, clearly Meghan, with the following line. She studied people the way a method actor studies a script. Carefully. Then she played the version she knew they wanted. Until she didn't need them anymore. The quote went instantly viral. Hashtag unclaimed baggage trended on Twitter. Speculation exploded. Excerpts were leaked. Audiobook snippets surfaced online, allegedly read by Trevor himself. And Meghan? She did what no one expected. She sued. Yes, for the first time in over a decade, Meghan Markle launched a pre-publication legal complaint. Her legal team demanded changes, redactions, even a full halt to publication, citing invasion of privacy, unfounded character attacks, emotional distress. But Stratton Publishing didn't budge. Their defense? Nothing in this book violates legal standards. These are Mr. Engelson's memories, and he has a right to share them. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team scrambled. Because the lawsuit made one thing worse. It confirmed the book mattered. Sales jumped 300% in pre-orders within 24 hours of the filing. And then came the leaked chapter titles. They read like a scorched earth mixtape. Exit, Stage Left. The Scripted Girlfriend. Princess Auditions. Brand Before Bond. Ghost Protocol. How I Was Deleted. The Crowning Moment. And Why I Didn't Watch It. Each one teased a deeper layer. And Meghan's team couldn't spin fast enough. Because Trevor wasn't just telling his story. He was pulling back the curtain on hers. Let's talk about what he revealed. One of the most buzzed-about chapters? Princess auditions. In it, Trevor describes a time in 2012 when Meghan, then still a working actress on Suits, became obsessed with British royalty. He writes, "She once said to me, I'd be perfect for the palace. I know how to play the part, but I'd also know how to change it. At the time, I thought she was joking. Now, I'm not so sure." He recounts her fascination with Princess Diana, her comments about Kate Middleton's wardrobe, and her growing belief that she was meant for more than cable television. Another passage drops a bomb. "When we got married, I thought we were partners. But slowly, I realized I was the stepping stone, a casting call before the real role arrived." The quote sent shockwaves, not just because of the content, but because of the tone. Trevor didn't sound bitter. He sounded reflective, calm, devastatingly honest. And readers couldn't look away. But the most gut-wrenching section? A chapter titled, "The Goodbye That Never Happened." Trevor writes, "She mailed the ring. No note, no phone call, no conversation. Just a padded envelope with a postmark and silence." He says he stared at the box for 3 days before opening it. That he cried. Not because she left, but because she didn't say why. And in that vulnerability, readers found something rare. A glimpse of Meghan from the only person who'd ever seen her before the palace. Before the cameras. Before the Still a Queen merch and podcast quotes. And that version wasn't as polished, wasn't as empowered, wasn't as kind. But Trevor's intention wasn't to destroy her. It was to reclaim himself. "I've spent a decade being her footnote," he writes. "Now, I'm writing my own chapter."